cover songs early, cover songs you never heard of, and then cover songs that never should have been.
Yeah, right. Well, I have an exponentially growing list of those.
Welcome to Music Musing. Every once in a while, my brother George and I would have these conversations about music. Music is our passion, and it's a huge part of our lives, and we decided to share those conversations with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast.
Okay, welcome back to Music Musing. Got my brother on the line.
How we doing?
Good. Today we're going to talk about something, maybe get into George's history, but I'm going to link the last podcast with this podcast right off the bat. George has no idea what I'm doing with this one. So when we talked last, we talked briefly about one-hit wonders, and then we kind of went into my history. And this week, we're going to maybe talk briefly about cover songs that you never heard of, which may turn into cover songs in general, because we did a cover songs episode early, and it was when we were kind of testing out audio to see if it would, if it would work. And I think you were in your car and I was in my car, and you were using an open phone and I was using a microphone that was built into my headphones. So,
right. We've upgraded considerably since.
That's an understatement, but yes. But we'll kick it off with one-hit wonders, and we were just not one-hit wonders. I'm sorry, cover songs that you didn't think were covers. And you and I were talking just before we signed on, and we kind of do that. We'll slip into what we're going to talk about, anyways, and
and then digress, and then start recording.
Exactly. We cut it off and at the knees and say, okay, we're going to do this. And you didn't do much research on this one, which is cool because I did a little bit. I mean, I knew this actually spurred out of me hearing that a song that I'd heard since the 90s was a cover song, and I had no idea. Zero. We even mentioned it. We mentioned Hard to Handle by Black Crowes, I would have swore that was a original song, but it was an Otis Redding song. And that kind of spurred me to think, wow, I wonder what other songs are out there. So I did a little bit of research. So it's kind of good that you didn't, because they'd be like, really?
Well, yeah, it's kind of an obscure thing. I mean, there aren't a lot of, it's almost a lot of, most covers are like overly documented. Like, hey, it's a cover of,
Well, I think that's also time frame too. Like
right.
A lot of these songs are older songs that at that point in time, people didn't think twice about them being on their album as a quote unquote cover song, because there was a lot of sharing with music and writing and stuff back then that, people are like, right. Hey, can I, put this on my album? And they're like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah, and there was a lot of writers that wrote songs that, they got royalties from and didn't really care about the recognition. And it's
Exactly. So might have been time frame a little bit on that, but
see, the ones I found, the ones I found were a lot older. It seemed like that.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I
thought you were talking about more recently.
No, I think more recently they kind of like headline it as it's a cover. Like the Sound of Silence was done by
Simon and Garfunkel versus Disturbed.
Yeah, which Disturbed, it made no secret that it was a cover, but the song's also been out for 35, 40 years or however long, and
right. But that's not an obscure song. It was a huge hit for Simon and Garfunkel too. So that's kind of
honestly, a lot of the songs that I found were pretty big hits as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I'll throw one out to you. This is the link to the last one. So the song Mickey by Tony Basil was a cover.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. It was actually called Kitty instead of Mickey, and it was by a band called Racy, R-A-C-E-Y. And it is identical and almost eerily.
Is it as annoying?
Almost eerily the same. I don't want to say same voice, but in the same register kind of sounds like her. It's really weird, dude. I'll be putting all these, if I can find them, on the Spotify list. But
yeah,
same words, same beat. You know, she popped it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But man, it is really close, and I had no idea. And you know, that was a one-hit wonder for her.
Oh yeah,
she didn't. There was nothing ever done by her, and
career of that. Yeah, that was a nice bow around the one-hit wonder versus didn't know it was covers. That was nice.
Yeah, it was shocking. I had to look it up and listen to it, and a lot of these I did that too. I'm like, really, that's a cover? Which is kind of why we're doing this podcast. That's what we do, is we call each other and talk about weird stuff.
The my first one was "Blinded by the Light" by Manfred Mann. I didn't
know that. Go ahead.
I had no idea it was a Bruce Springsteen song.
I didn't know that till last night. Like, I scoured just to see if maybe there's one that I missed, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I had to put it on to satisfy myself.
Yeah, and it's bad. Bruce Springsteen's version's bad, I think.
It is. I didn't know it was even the same song until he got to the chorus. And I'm like,
no, it's...
Oh, okay.
And I think that maybe falls into the when you're so used to hearing, like, the Black Crowes Hard to Handle, you wouldn't even dream that was a cover. And then when you hear the original, like, wow, that's really horrible. You know, what are they covered at?
The Otis Redding one of Hard to Handle isn't actually too bad. But yeah, the Springsteen one was, wow.
Yeah, it was strange to me that one of Manfred Mann's Earth Band, or whatever you want to call them, one of their biggest hits was a cover.
Yeah.
That really threw me off, really.
It's kind of interesting that we talked about that last week with the, Smoking in the Boys Room on Theater Pain, being such a huge hit. And, that was a Brownsville Station song. And that, like you said, that you couldn't go anywhere without hearing that on the radio 3 times a day when that was out and hot.
Yeah.
And that was, one of their biggest ones. And I think that one's a little more known. I think people kind of got that one a little bit more.
Yeah. I think
because they picked up, go ahead.
I think they picked a relatively, that was, a video was big in the, mid 80s late 80s when that came out. Was it 83, 85, somewhere in there? So
something like that.
Video was getting really big then. And I think, to be seen, that wasn't that far away from the original. Brownsville Station was probably late 70s, maybe.
Could have been. But yeah, you're right. They took something that was close in time, and then But if you look at bands like Van Halen, early Van Halen stuff, where they were covering "You Really Got Me," which everybody knows that was a cover because
it was a huge hit for the original band.
Kinks.
Yes.
Yes. So, it's a cover then because it's not an obscure song.
See, that's why I think the difference is some of these, they're cover songs because they cover a really great hit for the original band. Like
the Simon and Garfunkel song.
Exactly. And like Manfred Mann covering a Bruce Springsteen song that wasn't even a hit. But the Springsteen song came out in 68, and it was probably Manfred Mann. It had to be in the mid-late 70s probably, right? When that came out. So, there's a little bit of a greater difference and a little bit of a, you pick an obscure song like, what's Gwen Stefani's band? No Doubt did that obscure 80s talk song. Made it a huge hit. It's My Life.
It's My Life, right?
And
which I didn't actually know that was a cover till, relatively not too long ago, but it's been a while.
Right, but that's what I mean. When you take and No Doubt at the time was huge. So when you take a huge band and they do an obscure song, I think it makes a difference. Versus, obviously they don't care to know. They had to pay for the royalties or what they had to pay to use the song or cover the song, right. I'm sure. But there's a level of, I didn't know that. That's,
Yeah, I think that it was also easier to do back then because a lot of, mainstream radio today, like we talked about it. You got Spotify, you got Pandora, you got all the places where you can go actually get music for free.
Well, and the resources we have when you can
lightly
Google
for it, but
when you can Google, hey, give me the top 10 rock songs you didn't know were covers, and they'll tell send you links to 45 lists that's been done since 1980. It's like, wow.
True.
The information age is, I think
we should just stop doing podcasts, right? I mean,
well, no, right? But it's definitely an age of information where it's hard to, if bands were trying to sneak something like that through as, not necessarily their own, but they didn't really want it, blow it out. Hey, it's a cover song.
It's interesting because I was trying to look at what the latest was on the list that I found. I would say that, man, that's strange because a lot of them really. I mean, okay, so Come On, Feel the Noise.
Yeah. I knew that one was, but I was a Quiet Riot fan back in the day, sort of.
Well, I think people that hear it on the radio now, because it does get played quite often on radio, don't know where that came from. And I don't know if at the time that I found out, I was really heavily into music at the time and looking at old stuff and kind of going back and revisiting, old things. I went back and started listening to Slade, and Slade was actually a very groundbreaking band that didn't get a lot of notoriety.
Absolutely.
And then, for them to cover that song and kind of make it, quote unquote, a hit was almost.
That's a huge. I bet it was top 10.
Probably, and probably has rotated into top 10 every once in a while when somebody puts it on a movie or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But I'd say that's probably that or Tainted Love. Tainted Love might be newer.
Well, you're the Black Crowes in the early '90s. I would say was probably the most recent, like that you didn't really know. I mean,
right.
I would guess that because the '80s, I think, the 80s spawned, I mean, that was kind of the genesis of the 80s bands were doing covers of obscure 60s and 70s songs. And now, like, bands nowadays are doing, like, the Ataris did Boys of Summer, a Don Henley hit.
But again, a really famous song.
Right. Again, a really famous song. So I think the 80s bands were doing covers of bands that you may or may not have known, but songs that you probably hadn't heard unless you bought the album and listened to the album all the way through.
Like what I just said, Tainted Love was a Gloria Jones song.
Right.
Gloria Jones.
Right. And that's been covered, like Marilyn Manson covered that one too. Covered Tainted Love. So it's definitely, and that's one thing I did notice. The little bit of research I did do was there's a lot of multiple covers, like different songs. They get covered a lot by different bands, and I think that falls into and we've over the course of the past few years, I mean, we have back and forth. We have sent some covers that are known, covers that shouldn't be shown the light of day, and songs that shouldn't even be given the recognition that they actually covered song. And my personal feeling on this topic is there are songs that shouldn't be covered. And
I think that'll be our trifecta. And we'll do cover songs early, cover songs you never heard of, and then cover songs that never should have been.
Yeah, right. Well, I have an exponentially growing list of those, but
it's the ones that I keep sending is the problem.
No, well, yeah,
to you and Pete,
and likewise, yeah. I think Pete still has the winner with that AC/DC cover by the Asian lady. I don't even remember, Nightwing or something.
I'll have to see if I can actually find that on Spotify.
No, I shouldn't have brought it up because that's bad.
So Elvis Presley's Hound Dog was a cover.
I did see that in my research, but I didn't. I
should have restricted you from doing research.
No, well, I literally, I mean, I just poked around. I mean, because I love cover songs, so this one was kind of difficult for me, because I was like, well, I know a lot of these, so it was. I'm like, well, maybe there are, I'm sure there are a few, and when you're talking from the when did Hounding On come out? That had to be late 50s, early 60s,
Yeah,
right?
somewhere in that area, because it was early for him too.
Yeah, I mean that was one of his early hits, and
But Big Mama Thornton actually recorded it first.
yeah, but
Not too long actually before he did, but
right,
I think that's another thing, that a lot of the time frames between when the original recordings came out and when people covered them was really short back then as well.
right, especially the earlier you went, because again, the information age wasn't there. I mean, it was snail mail, and you had to be basically in the recording studio with that person or right after that person. Like, hey,
Right.
Big Mama, whatever you said her name was, just recorded this, but we don't think it's going anywhere. Why don't you record it?
Right.
Oh, yeah,
Elvis
Presley.
you're Elvis. You should record this.
Right. And we'll give her, she needs $50. So we'll give her,
Yeah.
royalties.
So here's one that I knew and I didn't know. Like, I Love Rock and Roll was a cover.
Yeah. Joan Jett.
Yeah. And
The
it was a
Arrows
cover by-
version is really good.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think I knew it, that it wasn't her song at the time, and I had heard that it was a cover. I never really went back and listened to it, but I listened to it when I was doing, just looking some background. Man, it's a really good song. I was quite shocked.
No, that was one of my, I knew it was like in the 80s. I knew that, for some reason. I'm not
I just
really
didn't
sure
know
why.
who.
Right. But they, I don't know. I think I mean, obviously Joan Jett's version gets, well, for those of us that are still forced to listen to radio, Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll gets played ad nauseum on local, even easy listening. I'd say light rock, stations. It's painful because it's a decent song. It really, I mean, for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, that was probably the antithesis of what they were going for. That was, it was a great song,
Right.
but it wasn't theirs. So I think that, it almost feels like that marred their, I'd hate and as she would say, she doesn't give a damn about her bad reputation.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
marred their reputation. I think it slowed them down by one of their biggest hits being a cover. Because Joan Jett and the Blackhearts was decent. I mean, they were, they changed a lot of ideas, and she was very talented in the Runaways,
Runaways were a big influence.
and then when she went to her own band, and like, it's almost like, to me, and this is a personal thing, it almost felt like she couldn't produce without a cup,
taking somebody else's.
Yeah, that I think that, I don't know, maybe it's just me, and please reach out to us and tell me differently, but it's just it just always seemed like that marred Joan Jett's career, being that one of their biggest hits was their first big hit was a cover.
So I got a couple more, and the majority of them are ones that I actually didn't know were covers.
Yeah.
But one of them I did know, but I in fact, I even knew who did the original, and I actually never went back and listened to it until just recently. So Red, Red Wine by UB40.
Yeah, I was a huge UB40 fan, and Mom is a huge Neil Diamond fan, so...
But I had never actually went back and listened to the original one until very recently.
Yeah, and it's not that far off. It's almost like Neil Diamond doing reggae. And if you guys are any kind of fan of the song, of the UB40 song, don't listen to the original.
Yeah, it's
Neil Diamond is a treasure. He is a national treasure. His voice, I mean...
doesn't fit that. It just doesn't fit it.
It did not work.
No, and it's shocking because, like you said, I mean, that's a big name in music. I mean, if you're any connoisseur of music at all and you don't respect or even like Neil Diamond, you're in the wrong business, because
he's
a staple.
Yeah,
I mean, you gotta know him. But yeah, his voice does not fit that song. UB40 did that song extreme justice.
Well, I will say two things. Number one, between Neil Diamond and Tom Jones, if you're a fan of singers, male singers, and you're not even a little bit interested, I mean, even I'm a rock and metal fan. Those two guys there, they're crooners. Those guys can sing.
Yep, that's an understatement too.
Not just a little bit. And secondly, the other point I was going to make is UB40 has made a career out of making making popular songs reggae covers, and they might have one song that you've heard of that wasn't a cover, but
that's a good point. Very good point. But anyway. Here's one that I really didn't know. I didn't know that Girls Just Want to Have Fun was a cover.
Oh, really?
I think looking back, I probably should have suspected that, but that song is super iconic.
Yeah. Oh no, that defines a genre almost. 80s girl pop, bubblegum pop, or whatever. That song is like an anthem. It's still an anthem.
Yeah, and I think that I think I just kind of discounted it because while I
was never a huge fan. But.
Right, swing it back to Neil Diamond. Yeah. I respect her. I respect her spot in music. There's a couple songs that hit me occasionally.
Sure.
But Girls Just Want to Have Fun was not one of them, and might have been just genre in my time of listening to that type of music. But I think if I had looked back and been a fan, I probably would have known that it was a cover, but I had no idea.
Yeah,
Robert Hazard actually is the one that did the song originally.
Yeah, I know. I'll certainly have to go back and listen to the original. She was the only thing that she ever did that I really kind of dug. But
I liked Good Enough for Me because it was in Goonies. So I know it's obscure, but so Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix was a cover.
I did know that, but I don't know who did the original.
The Leaves is the name of the band.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't. I had no idea. I knew that Along the Watchtower was.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that Hey Joe was.
That was a Dylan song. But
yeah, I had no idea that Hey Joe was.
No, I didn't either.
I mean, minus the guitar playing, it's not, I'll put it on the mix. You can hear it, but yeah, I shocker. I had no idea that was a cover.
This is one of those things where I'll probably, here's where the hate mail should come in. I can
wait a minute. Come in. Maybe you sure it's not already there?
Well,
have you checked
it might be. I've never been a huge Jimi Hendrix fan.
I think we've even talked about that before. I'm not much of a Jimi Hendrix fan in general either.
Now, the appreciation for the man's talents and for obviously a very short career span, Are You Experienced is one of the most amazing songs done. When you write it and record it forward and then and play it backwards and it sounds right.
Yeah.
There aren't 10 people on the planet that could probably do that the right way.
Yeah. And I think we've both come to that conclusion that I think heavily guitar led music is good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But just not for us. And, I think people like Eddie Van Halen did it right where they could still play a really good rhythm.
Sure.
I think that's where I fall off on guitarists like Jimi Hendrix and even Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm not much of a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan for the same reason.
Let's see, that's what I was going to say. I'm a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, so I think there's some almost in the blues rock genre thing like that, or like a really heavy guitar laden thing like that. I think there's like two camps. There's like Jimi Hendrix and like Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's the way it's always kind of felt for me, but I may be wrong. I mean, it's just
prove me wrong, right?
More my, yeah, exactly. Prove me wrong.
So the last one I'll give you, and then I want to jump into your history because I think we didn't do it enough justice. I listened back to our other podcast, and I don't think we really did your history enough justice. But the last one was "Hush" by Deep Purple.
Really?
Yeah. It was done by a single singer named Billy Joe Royal, and he's got energy. He's out there. It is not the same song.
Yeah.
But I was shocked. That was one I had no idea that Hush by Deep Purple was a cover.
Yeah, When I get really, no, it's like the curveball. I had no idea that was either.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and like I said, there's even a video on YouTube. If you go out and look at it and watch it's of him singing, and it's probably, I'd have to look at the dates, but it's probably not that much, before the Deep Purple version.
Yeah.
You can tell just kind of by the clothes, probably the end of the disco era type. It might have even been pushing that genre a little bit, kind of like, the hey, disco's kind of starting to fall off. Let's kind of push it into rock era.
Right.
So the guy singing, it's kind of, he's got a little bit of energy. He's out there in your face a little bit, but it's just him singing. There's like no band you can see or anything. But
yeah,
I think the Deep Purple version certainly eclipses that by quite a bit. So.
Yes. So I have one curveball that you didn't mention. Did you know Led Zeppelin's "Dazed and Confused" was a cover?
Yeah. So
because I'm not a huge Led Zeppelin fan, so that is, shocking to me. One of their.
So I listened to it, and I don't know if "cover's" the right word. So, Led Zeppelin had that knack for taking, or as some people call it, stealing old blues songs or blues riffs and putting them into songs and kind of reformatting them and changing them around. And I'll put it on there. I'll put the original one on there, but it's
Jake Holmes was the guy that.
But man, it's a stretch. It's a.
Again, I'm not much of a Led Zeppelin fan.
Oh, I am
per se. I know, and so that threw me off. That when I saw that.
It did me too, and I think that I probably would have added it to the list had I really thought it was close, and it did throw me off because I had no idea. I knew that some of their one, off 1 and 2 were either blatant ripoffs or really rearranged old blues type songs that they'd found, and I don't know if they were doing that to get around the copyrights or paying anybody royalties or not. But when you listen to those songs, there's a pretty substantial difference. I mean, the structure's there, some of the words are there, but man, it's pretty far removed from the original song. But I'll put them both under so we can listen to it. I did see that on the list, and I don't know, I just felt like it didn't fit that.
Then my last one is one that really threw me off, was because of how it was released. Superstition by Stevie Wonder. It was I love the song, but he actually wrote that for Jeff Beck.
Yeah, I did read that too, and I think Beck didn't want it, or
no, he actually Wonder actually recorded it also, but there's due to delays in Jeff Beck's album release, it actually came out before his version.
So it technically was.
He was
weird.
Yeah, so does that count? He actually wrote the song, but then he gave it to somebody else and then released it himself, but before the guy he wrote it for. That's that's one of those, coin flip deals. I don't know if that counts as a cover. Did that cover him? Did he cover?
We could almost do an entire episode on people that have written songs for other people, or people that don't write their own songs. We're country bashers. We know that. We do that on a regular basis. But
that's pretty much how that genre works.
Well, right, exactly. That's and it's gotten a little bit better lately. A lot of the guys have really started writing their own stuff. But
sure.
80s, 90s country was, there was 5 people writing songs for
Cookie
17
cutter
bands.
Yeah.
And amazing writers. I mean, a couple of the big country guys from the 80s and stuff were writing their own music. Garth Brooks was writing a lot of his own music, but man, there were a lot of musicians out there that none of them were writing their stuff. People were writing them and handing them sheets of paper to record.
Right.
And, that could be an entire other discussion, in which I did see the Superstitious on there. And
I just thought that was kind of a rad the way it happened, so it's kind of I don't know how you would put that. But
so let's talk about who George Seibert is. What's music, man? What is music to you? And we'll have to take a break right there, and we'll hear George's story on the next episode, so be sure to tune in.
We want to talk to you about music, so reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com.
You can also find us on most social media sites by searching Music Musing or George or Craig Seibert, Sybert.
And you can also find us on Twitter as musicmusing_ as well.
Thank you for listening to this Music Musing podcast.